What is going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of our weekly picks, this time for week 2. A lot of drama in week 1. Aaron Rodgers going down for the year. The Dolphins and the Chargers game was a crazy game. The Lions beating the Chiefs to start off the week. It was an awesome week 1, and now it's time to start diving into week 2. I have a premiere going tonight at 6:45 p.m. Eastern for the Thursday night primetime game, so that will not be featured on here. But the Monday night and Sunday night games will, but I will be doing premieres for those as well. So the first game I got here is the Buffalo Bills and the Las Vegas Raiders. So Bills with the really, really unfortunate loss versus the New York Jets. Considering the circumstances, they just couldn't do it, And I think the Bills defense is good. They look good against the Jets. Now, granted, they did play Zach Wilson majority of the game. But I do think that Jimmy Garoppolo is quite a ways better than Zach Wilson. Now, Zach Wilson did okay, and he found a way to get it done. But ultimately, Jimmy G is a little better, and the Raiders have a couple of weapons. They could run the football, and it seemed like the Bills struggled to run the football, they struggled to stop the run. So if the Raiders can get up early, if they can get that run game going and control this game, I can see the Raiders having a shot at this one. But the Raiders are going to have to control this game on the ground, and they're going to have to limit a lot of the little stupid mistakes that they made versus the Broncos. If they make those versus the Bills, they probably will not win. Now, the Raiders' defense is nowhere near the caliber of what we saw from the Jets in week 1. They have Max Crosby, and that's probably about it on that defense. Now, I know they have Chandler Jones. He just hasn't been the Chandler that we know in Las Vegas. He's in the twilight of his career, but other than, Max Crosby, there's not really too much to write home about. But Josh Allen has to clean up those turnovers. Like, if Josh Allen throws a couple of picks, like let's say Josh Allen throws 1 or 2 interceptions and the Raiders capitalize by running the football and really chewing the clock, and say especially in the fourth quarter, it's a one-score game, let's say if the Raiders are up by 3, Josh Allen throws a pick and the Raiders are at midfield, let's say it's the fourth quarter. The Raiders are going to run that damn ball. And if they score a touchdown, that's a 2-possession game in the fourth quarter. And I don't know, man, it seems like that Josh Allen is really, like, once he loses focus, once you hit him, he struggles to regain focus. If he starts bad, he won't change. The game will be the same for him all game long. But I do think the Bills will come out with the win in this one. I think it will be closer than some people may anticipate. But I think Josh Allen gets back on track here. We know Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs is kind of like that show, so hopefully they can get something else going. But could the Raiders necessarily stop the Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs show? That's kind of the thing. If the opposing team has a half decent offense and has a good defense, I don't see them having a problem beating the Bills, because it's really Josh Allen. Well, it's much more difficult than said, but Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, that's really all that offense is. No one else really stepped up. Josh Allen kind of won the game for the Jets. And now I know the Jets worked for it. The defense worked their butt off, but Josh Allen basically, he kind of single-handedly lost it for the Bills. The defense played well. They played as well as they could for most of the game. It's just, it gets to some point where, that defense gets really tired of these turnovers, and they get tired in general. But I think the Buffalo Bills will come out on this one. Will come out of this one on top versus the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm taking the Buffalo Bills 27-23. I can see the Bills scoring more, and I can also see the Raiders pulling this upset off. But I think Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs won't have a problem against the Las Vegas Raiders. Next game we have here is the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals game. So NFC North Showdown, AFC North Showdown, not NFC. We all saw what happened to the Bengals last week. We all saw what happened to Lamar Jackson. I know Lamar Jackson played actually really well, and something I want to point out here. Joe Burrow was pressured like 32% of the time. Lamar Jackson was pressured like 42% of the time. So I know Lamar Jackson throwing the football still doesn't look like he had a good game. He didn't. He had a rough game. He even fumbled once. He had a few mistakes that are unforgivable, but they won the game, so you could kind of mask it up a little bit, but they have to work on that. I just don't think the Bengals could do it. I don't see the Bengals. I know the Bengals are at home, but as we all know, the Bengals always start slow. We obviously saw that in week 1. I will say the lone bright spot was them running the football. They couldn't pass the football. Joe Burrow was horrible. Now he couldn't really pass. The offensive line was horrible. But he was overthrowing Jamar Chase a couple times, overthrowing T. Higgins. He was kind of like just wasn't the Joe Burrow we know. And it's very difficult to play a good game against a team against a really good defense when you can't go vertical at all. When your offense has to be horizontal all game, and it's kind of going to be a situation versus the Ravens. A similar situation. Now the Ravens are beat up. I know Ronnie Staley's dealing with injuries. J.K. Dobbins with the Achilles. They have a few injuries. They are really beat up. So I can see the Bengals getting tremendous pressure on Lamar, but both Lamar and Joe Burrow have really good weapons. I think the Ravens could get that extra turnover on defense, the extra turnover or two. And the Bengals' pass defense is pretty good, but their run defense is where they fell apart. Nick Chubb, even Deshaun Watson, those guys ran so easily on the Bengals. And now that you have Lamar Jackson, I know you don't have a running back, at the caliber of Nick Chubb. You don't really have that kind of running back, but they have one of the best running quarterbacks in the entire National Football League, if not the best. I think he's the best. Can the Bengals stop the run? And could they play a lot of mistake-free football? I don't think so. With how bad that offensive line is, with how much Joe Burrow is going to be pressured, it's very difficult to go vertical. And when the offense has to be horizontal all game, it becomes not as difficult to defend. And then like a stack the box, stop the run. I just think that the Ravens, I just think the matchup of them being able to run the football, being able to get a turnover or two, I think the Ravens are going to win this one, 23-17. Now, I don't expect the Bengals to be bad all year. I expect them to pick it up eventually. But the offensive line could make it difficult to do so. But I'm going to take Baltimore in this one. So I actually did kind of skip on back on earlier. Is the Atlanta Falcons and the Green Bay Packers. This is a tough game to pick. I had a tough time with this one. I was going back and forth for quite some time. Both defensive lines, both defenses were really impressive in week one. The Packers defensive line, very good against Justin Fields running the football. He got a good run or two off, a good couple runs off. They're doing really well against the screen game. Very good against the run game. And then the Falcons were also very good against the run game. Well, they were okay. They weren't great. Not as good as the Packers. They weren't great. They're okay. Panthers did run for 132. And it is a lot. But over 32 attempts. So, just over 4 yards per carry. This is a tough one. But I'm taking the Packers because I'm going to trust the Packers defense to be able to stop the run better than what the Falcons can do. I think, the Packers are going to run the ball well. Even though, the Falcons have a really good defensive front. The Falcons' defensive front is deadly. Very good. Amniata, Grady Jarrett, Bud Dupree. They have guys all over that defensive line that can make plays all day long. And we saw versus the Panthers. This is why Bryce Young couldn't do anything. But I think Jordan Love is going to make a couple more plays. Desmond Ridder, his receivers weren't really getting open too much for him last week. And Drake London dropped a pass. I will say that I think, the Falcons struggled against Hayden Hurst last week, so that's something to keep an eye on because the Packers have Luke Musgrave, who had a phenomenal week one, caught a few nice passes. Now Jordan Love did overthrow him on one as well, which could have been another big game. So I think the Falcons are going to struggle to pass the ball consistently, and I think they're going to struggle to stop the tight end. And they do have A.J. Terrell, but who's going to be on the other side? The Packers have more weapons than the Panthers. So I see the Green Bay Packers pulling this one out 20-17. I know I love Arthur Smith, and I absolutely love the run game and Tyler Algier and I'm blanking, Bijan. They're both good out of the backfield, too. They got a lot of targets out of the backfield. Doesn't really like throwing to the running backs. But Green Bay was really good against the screens against Justin Fields and the Packers. And that's big because screens are much more difficult to defend when you have a running quarterback as well. It makes it that much more difficult when you have a quarterback that can take off and run because the defensive line has to kind of make a decision sometimes. But I think the Packers linebacker room is very good. I think they're going to be able to help stop the run. Now, is Bijan and the running backs going to make a good play, here and there? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't think it's going to be enough. And now Desmond Ridder had one of the highest pass ratings in week 1, but he was 15 for 18 and 115 yards. He didn't throw for a lot of yards at all. And I would like to see them, take a couple more shots, throw deep to Drake London, Kyle Pitts. But I'm not sure if they're going to be able to do that against the Packers. Other teams might be able to. I don't think so much about the Packers. So I'm taking the Green Bay Packers in this matchup. Packers taking it home versus the Falcons in Atlanta. And the Jordan Love era is off to a hot start, starting 2-0. Next game we have is the Detroit Lions and the Seattle Seahawks. I see a lot of people are looking at this game as a trap game. This is absolutely a trap game, 100%. I can see the Seahawks winning this game. The Seahawks week 1 looked absolutely horrible against the Rams. The weird thing is the Rams just flat out looked like the better team. The Seahawks didn't have any, a lot of turnovers or anything like that. On the other hand, the Detroit Lions had a pretty good day against the Chiefs. Should they have won that game? No, but at the end of the day, they did. And it would not shock me one bit to see the Seahawks win this one. I actually had the Seahawks winning it at first, but I went back through. And, will Devon Witherspoon be back this week? And I'm just going to ask myself, the Lions' offense last week struggled. But I think the Chiefs' defense is actually pretty good. It's actually pretty darn good. Now, the Seahawks have playmakers all over the defense. They brought Bobby Wagner back. They had Tariq Woolen from last year. Hopefully Devon Witherspoon can get out there. Hopefully they can get some momentum on defense this week, but I don't think it's going to be against Jared Goff and the Lions. I think Jared Goff is going to have no problem getting to Amon-Ra St. Brown in the slot. You have Josh Reynolds, who had a really nice game on Thursday versus the Chiefs. Taking the Lions win it, and I think that the Lions defensive line is going to pressure Geno Smith big time. I think they're going to have a hard time making some time for Geno Smith. Geno Smith is going to be under pressure all game long. And I heard that both of the Vikings tackles are injured right now. Are they both playing? I'm not sure. I think one is out for sure, if I remember correctly. But yikes. You're going to have both of your tackles out, and your offensive line played very poorly against the Rams, who they have Donald. But the Detroit Lions have Aiden Hutchinson. They have James Houston on the other side. The Lions are really impressive up front. They pressure the Kansas City Chiefs all night long. 42% of the dropbacks, they pressure Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs have a good offensive line. I think it's the second best offensive line in the NFL. Eagles are number 1. Chiefs are number 2. So for them to put pressure on the Chiefs' offensive line like that, I don't see them having any problem putting pressure on Geno Smith and having Geno Smith have a long day. So I'm taking the Detroit Lions, and I think the offense is going to be able to make a couple more plays than the Seahawks offense could. Now, the Seahawks have more weapons than Mahomes and the Chiefs have, but they don't have Mahomes. And Geno Smith did not look good last week. Now, granted, he didn't look good under pressure, and the Rams really pressured him a lot. And if that's how he's going to look under pressure this year, if he's going to take the step back this year, he had the one great year. Is it gone? Can you do it again? We're going to see as the season goes on. So, I'm taking the Detroit Lions. I think the Lions are going to take this one home. Now, it is definitely a trap game. I could see the Seahawks going in and winning. But I got the Lions. I have faith. This is my upset of the week. I have one of the upsets of the week. I have a few, as I do every week. I have the Tennessee Titans beating the Chargers. So you're going to be like, JW crazy. There's no way Ryan Tannehill and that offense outscores Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Hold on a second. I'll explain to you why. Ryan Tannehill didn't look good versus the Saints at all. Saints have a really good secondary. He was pressured all day long. And yeah, he didn't play well at all. But are the Chargers going to be able to pressure him the same way that the Saints were? You have Nick Bosa. Who else is going to step up? You have Khalil Mack, but he didn't really do much week 1. The Chargers had 0 sacks in week 1. And, the Dolphins' line is decent. The Titans' offensive line proved to be horrible in week 1. Really struggled. Like I said, Tannehill was under pressure 42% of his snaps. But the Chargers struggled against the run. And I think the Titans are going to be able to get a couple turnovers. And the Titans are good against the run as well. The Chargers were very good running the football. But the Titans' defense is one of the best in the league. And I think the Titans' defense is going to be able to get just enough turnovers to rattle Justin Herbert just enough to get a couple of turnovers and have Derrick Henry run all over them all game long. And Ryan Tannehill make the necessary throws that he needs to once in a while. I'm taking the Tennessee Titans to upset the Chargers and have the Chargers start 0-2. It's not Herbert's fault. It's the Chargers' fault for not building around. I mean, the offensive line did look really good for the Chargers in week 1. They really did. They were healthy and they looked good. But this Titans defensive line is one of the better ones in the NFL. The Dolphins defensive line is not too bad either. You have Christian Wilkins. You have Jalen Phillips. You have some really good talents in that line. But altogether, linebackers, corners, safeties, secondary, defensive line, I think that this Tennessee defense is going to be able to force just enough turnovers, rattle Herbert just enough, and keep the score just as low as it needs to be. And the Titans walk off on a field goal. Let's say they walk off with a field goal. Or the Titans defense even makes a big-time play, at the end. The Chargers offense couldn't win when it mattered most versus the Dolphins. So, if Tannehill throws 3 or 4, 2 or 3 interceptions, or, and if he fumbles once, it's going to be tough for the Titans. But it's still early on in the season. Weird things like this happen. The Chargers have those games that they lose that they shouldn't. Coming off of a loss. The Titans are at home. I'm going to take the Titans to upset the Chargers. Next up, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Chicago Bears. The Buccaneers defense, as I told everyone, is very good. It's much better than people anticipate. Now, were they fortunate? Were they given opportunities that you might not always get outside of week 1? Absolutely. Kirk Cousins fumbled twice. He threw an interception in the red zone. Those are kind of like week 1 shenanigans, week 1, not really the wiggles, kind of like the week 1 like jitters, I guess you could say. Making those mistakes, fumbling twice, throwing an interception. Now Kirk has to clean those up, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you can't take it away from them that they forced a few fumbles. They were pressuring Kirk Cousins quite often. And this Chicago Bears offensive line was absolutely horrible against the Packers. And Justin Fields didn't look good. He fumbled in a big moment. He threw a really bad interception right to Quay Walker. Right to him. Couldn't have been any worse. He wasn't really throwing the ball well. Didn't really have time to throw the ball. Chase Claypool, horrible. He doesn't even try. I don't even know why you still have him on the team. You could have other receivers on the team that are actually going to try. Darnell Mooney had a few nice catches. DJ Moore didn't really do too much. And I don't think the Bucs are a team that are as good as 2-0. I think this is going to be one of those teams that start off strong. Because, they're playing the Bears now, who Justin Fields did not look good. He was rattled all week 1. And the Buccaneers' defensive line is not much worse than the Packers. And then the Bucs have a good defense. They have playmakers in the secondary. They have Antoine Winfield, who's one of the best young safeties in the NFL. You have Carlton Davis, who's a very good cornerback. L'Jarius Sneed, a decent cornerback. I think that these Bears receivers are going to struggle in open. And I think Justin Fields is going to struggle again. And that's why I'm taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win 19-16. Now, my issue with the Buccaneers is their offense. Mainly Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was really clutch towards the end of last game. Really clutch to against the Vikings at the end. Really clutch. Now the issue with Mayfield is he has these drives where, they're great. You drive right down the field and you get big time plays. He's accurate, making good passes, and it's awesome. It's great. But then you have, he's like one of those players, kind of like Carson Wentz, where he's inconsistent from throw to throw, from drive to drive, from quarter to quarter. You never know what you can get from Baker Mayfield every single time he drops back. It'd be a wild. There were a lot of open receivers that Baker Mayfield underthrew or overthrew. He just straight up missed them, and that's fine. I think they're going to be able to run the ball against the Bears. The Bucs' offensive line isn't great. It's going to be more than enough to run well against the Bears. The Bears' offensive line is pretty bad. Now, I do like the linebackers, Terrell Edmunds and TJ Edwards, but sometimes you can only play as well as your defensive line as linebackers. TJ Edwards didn't look great. Terrell Edmunds made a few nice plays. Tremaine Edwards made a few nice plays. But I don't think it's going to be enough. I could see Rachaad White having a nice game. He's very good at receiving the ball out of the backfield last game. He had a lot of catches out of the backfield. And who torched them out of the backfield last game? Aaron Jones. The Bears defense did not look very good. They were horrible. A lot of wide open receivers, a lot of blown coverages. And quite frankly, I don't think they have it in them to beat the Buccaneers in week 2. Well, like I've been saying, I don't think the Buccaneers are a great team. But they're going to start off good. They're starting 2-0. I don't know who they're playing next week, but 2-0 is very likely. And the Justin Fields much anticipated year 2 could start off very badly. He did not look good versus the Packers. Did not look good. He was horrible. So let's see what he could do this week. Now the Bucs are playing a totally different type of quarterback, and Justin Fields who could rush, but I still don't think they're gonna have that much of an issue. Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I was tempted to pick the Jaguars in this one. They're at home. They struggled against the Colts a bit. And I'm only picking the Chiefs because I think Travis Kelce's going to play. If Travis Kelce doesn't play, I might switch my pick. And I will put it in the YouTube members. No, I would just comment it in the YouTube. I'll just put it on the community tab. And I'll post it on Twitter. Maybe. But I will say, the Chiefs' offensive line was not great. And I know early on in the video I said I think that they're one of the best offensive line in the NFL. Yes. But Mahomes had to run around like crazy. He had to wait. His receivers weren't getting open. When they did, they were dropping passes. Could Kadarius Toney have a bounce back game? You just don't know who's going to step up for Mahomes. The running game looked okay. I felt like they maybe should have run it more for how poorly the receivers were getting open. You just couldn't get anything going in the passing game. The Jaguars were really good against the Colts, stopping the run. Now, maybe Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon are a little better than what the Colts have a running back currently, not including Zach Moss. But I think that Mahomes is going to make that extra play over Trevor Lawrence. Now, Mahomes did not have a great week 1. He didn't look great. But, there's only so much he could have done. He was overthrowing a lot of passes at scene, but I just think he was just trying to get the ball out and get to a spot where it wouldn't be intentional grounding. Get to a spot, just launch deep and give him a shot. Because there were many times where Patrick Mahomes let it loose downfield, but there were like 2 or 3 receivers around, or 2 or 3 corners around the receiver, but it was overthrown most of the time. So I think Mahomes overthrew it a couple of times on purpose, maybe. All right, that could sound wild, but I could see it. Now, Trevor Lawrence, the Chiefs' defense was very good. It was incredible. And if Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars want to win this game, they're going to have to play a million years better than they did versus the Colts defense. They struggled. Trevor Lawrence, I know his pass rating looked good, and all that stuff, but he had a few passes here and there. He underthrew, he overthrew. He should have had a second interception. He threw it literally right to Julian Blackmon. If Trevor Lawrence can stay consistent the full game, the whole game, I don't see the Jaguars. I could see the Jaguars winning it, but that's the problem. Trevor Lawrence can't stay consistent, and they lost Brandon Scherff. I'm not sure how long he's out, but I know he went down for the Colts. That Jaguars offensive line struggled, and Trevor Lawrence was under pressure a lot. Are the Chiefs going to have Chris Jones back? I don't know. DeForest Buckner was absolutely crazy that game. And the Colts defense line was just getting after it, making it a little difficult at times for Trevor Lawrence. You can say the coverage was okay. It wasn't great. Definitely broke down in a few key moments, and that's when the Jaguars scored. And the Jaguars defense also played, a very unexperienced quarterback in Anthony Richardson. And you're going from Anthony Richardson, who's barely played football and struggling with accuracy a little bit, and trying to get to playing Patrick Mahomes, who is, all the experiences there. You're playing probably one of the more inexperienced guys, one of the worst quarterbacks right now, could climb up that list to the best quarterback in the National Football League. And I know maybe even the Chiefs' weapons aren't as consistent, aren't as, impressive as the Colts. And I'm just saying that just because, especially if Travis Kelce isn't in there. They don't have a guy like Michael Pittman, but I think the Chiefs can take this. I could see Trevor Lawrence throwing a bad ball or two, leading to a pick or two, maybe fumbling, because that Chiefs defensive line was all right against Jared Goff. I could see them really going to town on Trevor Lawrence. I'd like to get the ball out quick, and the Jaguars do like to get the ball out quick. Got to contain Ridley, contain the run game, and the Chiefs will win it. And they did that very well against the Lions. They limited the run game. They limited Amon-Ra. Even though Amon-Ra made some pretty big plays on pretty important downs, the defense did what it could. I got the Chiefs in this one. Although Travis Kelce doesn't play, I can see the Jaguars winning it. I might change my pick. All right, then we got the Houston Texans at home taking on the Indianapolis Colts. First, I want to talk about the Texans. They didn't play as bad as the score looked. I know the score, what was it, like 23 or 25-3, 25-10, something, 25-7. The Texans didn't do much on offense. They had a few nice drives here and there. Ultimately couldn't punch in or couldn't, finish the drives or get some going more consistently. But I thought C.J. Stroud was incredible. And I'm excited to see C.J. Stroud versus Anthony Richardson. But I will say I think C.J. Stroud played much better in Week 1. I'm not going to say much better, but I think C.J. Stroud played better in Week 1 than Anthony Richardson. C.J. Stroud was pressured all day long. And he was still making very accurate throws on the run, under pressure, to maybe some subpar receivers. But I do like Nico Collins. Nico Collins had a really nice game, had a few nice catches, a few nice first downs. Really like what I saw from Nico Collins. I think he could turn into a really nice receiver for C.J. Stroud. You had Robert Woods making a few catches. Tank Dell made a really nice catch. You have guys in this. You have receivers that can make plays. It's just, can that offensive line hold up? Because that Colts defensive line was really strong versus the Jaguars offensive line. The Jaguars get the ball out quick. They like to get the ball out quick. They like to scheme things open fast. And, the Colts still got pressure and, made Trevor Lawrence make a few mistakes. And that's what the Colts could be having for them. But the secondary, I think that's where the Colts are going to struggle. Like I said, well, the Jaguars do have better receivers than the Texans. That's without a doubt. But I think the Texans and I thought CJ Stroud looked phenomenal Week 1. Now, I can absolutely see a game where the Colts are getting so much pressure on Stroud, he's struggling, and maybe the secondary, maybe this team capitalizes on a couple turnovers, and Anthony Richardson has a decent day. But, that brings us to part 2 of the Texans. I think the Texans have a very good defense. They played that Ravens offense hard until the second half. The Ravens made adjustments and just pulled away. But I thought the Texans played much better than the score looked in that football game. The defense played Lamar hard. Lamar Jackson really struggled. Now Lamar Jackson is in a new system, new coordinator, all that stuff, but the Texans still did a good job. They still did a good job against an electric quarterback on the ground and him passing the ball wise. And now you're playing you're playing the rookie version of Lamar in a way, but Anthony Richardson has a long way to go in experience-wise. And this Colts offensive line was not great in week 1. It was all right. But, the Texans' defensive line pressured Lamar like 40%. 30, I think it was north of 30 or north of 40% that he was pressured. So if they're doing that against a decent Ravens offensive line, which Ronnie Stanley was, he got hurt. So it didn't matter if Ronnie Stanley was in or not. They were still getting lots of pressure on Lamar Jackson. But I think they're going to get too much pressure on Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson's going to make a lot of mistakes. You can see him making a few mistakes. Texans be on the run the ball. Seemed like, the Jaguars were running the ball right on the Colts. So, they just didn't keep running it. But, Texans have Dameon Pierce, Singletary, and, their offensive line struggled. It definitely did struggle in the passing game. It seemed like it struggled versus, in the run game as well. But you're playing a Colts team that's not going to give you looks like the Ravens defense did. They don't give looks like that. They're going to give you cover 3. They're going to give you zone coverage and throw a blitz in there once in a while. But I think Texans win this one. And I'm pretty comfortable with this one too. I'm pretty confident in the Texans beating the Colts in week 2. Week 3, you got the Los Angeles Rams taking on the San Francisco 49ers at home. Now everyone's going to... Oh, I see. I screwed up the boxes. I screwed up the box colors. But I do have the San Francisco 49ers winning 31-15. And that's because this team looked like they're in midseason form ready. They look like they're ready. We've seen many times this 49ers team start slow. And I frankly thought that game was going to be close between the Niners and the Steelers. Obviously, it was not. The Niners defense was all over Kenny Pickett, pressuring him on like almost every single play. The Steelers couldn't run the ball. And on top of that, the Steelers defense just wasn't playing good. They're missing tackles, missing assignments. This did not look like that Steelers team did not look like a Mike Tomlin team. But, props to the Niners. They were getting in the backfield every single play, it felt like. Whether they were actually bringing Kenny Pickett down for a sack or really pressuring him with a couple of guys. They have Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave. They have talent in that line. And I'm not sure if this Rams offensive line is going to be able to deal with it. Matthew Stafford is a much better quarterback than Kenny Pickett right now. Like, Matthew Stafford is miles ahead of Pickett. Stafford's one of the better ones in the league, honestly, when he's healthy. But the Niners' defense is going to be too much for them. And the Niners' offense, I don't think they're going to have that much of an issue with the Rams' defense like the Seahawks did. Brock Purdy won't let that happen to him. Christian McCaffrey was going to run really well. The Seahawks seem to run pretty good on the Rams. So I don't see why Christian McCaffrey can't have 23 rushes, 150 yards, and 2 touchdowns on the ground. I don't see why that can't happen. I think Brock Purdy is going to go absolutely wild. And I just don't see the Rams being able to pull this one out. After what we saw from the 49ers in week 1, nah. I got the 49ers 31-15. Now, it is a divisional matchup. It is still early on in the season, and we see weird freaking crap happen. I don't see the Rams beating the 49ers. Absolutely not. Even if it's in LA, I don't see it. Next matchup we have here is the New York Giants versus the Arizona Cardinals. Did not like what I saw from the Giants in week 1. No one did. They were they were the worst team in week 1. And now they're playing the team that everyone is expecting to be the worst team. Well, everyone is expecting to have the number 1 overall pick, which is the worst team in the NFL. As long as you don't trade it away. And the Cardinals maybe should have won that game versus the Commanders. They got a break with that fumble. And they had a few chances to go down the field, go get something, and could not. And, Josh Dobbs just not that impressive, overthrowing Zach Ertz for a touchdown, which, that's where they probably should have scored that touchdown. He overthrew Zach Ertz a little bit in the end zone. Don't really have many weapons. And the Giants defense is going to get a lot of pressure on Joshua Dobbs. I don't even know if the Lions or if the Cardinals can get down the field 4 times to score 4 field goals, or if they score a touchdown, they miss an extra point, and then they get 2 field goals, and then let's say the Giants score that game-winning touchdown. Now I think the Giants really need to have a much better game than this to really make up for what happened last week. If they don't win this game by more than 10 points, I might be a little worried. I'm going to be a little worried. But the Cardinals' defensive line was pretty damn good against the Commanders' offensive line. Again, tons of pressure on Sam Howell. Tons. And the way that offensive line looked versus Dallas, I know Dallas is one of the best offensive lines in the league. Great players at every spot in that offensive line. Or that defensive line, I meant. They have Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence, Monty Smith. They throw in these wild blitzes, a lot of man coverage. The Cardinals won't be able to replicate what the Cowboys did. That's for damn sure. They don't really have the corners to do it. You have Budda Baker, but he's not great in coverage. He's decent in coverage. He's not great. There's no reason why the Giants should lose this one. This offensive line better bounce back. This offensive line, I have a lot higher expectations for this team. But after that week 1 matchup versus the Cowboys, I don't care if it was raining. Both teams played in it. I don't care. The Cowboys were still going just fine. Daniel Jones didn't look good. He didn't have time. The receivers weren't getting open. Darren Waller, hopefully he can have a better game than he did in week 1. I thought Deonte Banks looked pretty good. That's probably one of the lone bright spots. But I think that Saquon Barkley is going to have a big time game versus the Cardinals. I think it's going to be the Barkley show, and I think Daniel Jones is going to make quite a few nice throws in this game. They're going to get themselves back on track, back on rhythm. So I'm taking the New York Giants. I think they're flat out the better team. But if the Giants lose this game, there's going to be some big-time roars. But I hope they can come out and crush it, and crush the Cardinals. I'd like to see them bounce back for how bad that game was. But if they lose, I don't even know, man. All right, moving on. Dallas Cowboys and the New York Jets. I don't think I really need to talk about the Cowboys much, do I? Is Zach Wilson, the Jets offense, going to be able to do anything against the Cowboys defense? We were out to think that the Giants had a decent offensive line, which I still think they do. We'll see if they can bounce back. I just kind of lost track of my thoughts. So we thought that the Giants' offensive line was better, and I think the Jets' offensive line is okay. I don't think it's as good as the Giants' O-line, and we do have some good players on the line. You have Zach Wilson back there. You do have receivers that can get open, a little different from the Giants. The Giants don't really have receivers that can get open quickly and consistently. We haven't seen that from Isaiah Hodgins. I like Isaiah Hodgins, like I saw from him last year. Did not see the first game at all. Didn't see it from anybody. Paris Campbell even dropped a few passes. But, getting off topic too much. I don't think Zach Wilson's going to have much time to throw against this Cowboys defense. I don't think Zach Wilson I think he's going to be seeing ghosts. He's going to be seeing ghosts. And as you see, I don't have the New York Jets scoring a touchdown. I have them scoring 3 field goals. I don't even know if they could get down the field twice. At first, I literally had 0 there because, I was impressed by them. And I thought that, if there's one thing you could do against the Cowboys a little bit, it's run up the middle if you have a strong interior. Jets kind of have that. They had a few really nice runs versus the Bills, but this Cowboys defense is a whole different animal when it comes to defense. And I don't see why the Cowboys can't score 30 plus, but I put 27 because I do think the Jets defense is very good. It's just, it's going to get tired. It can only be out there so long. And, if the Jets offense it's just going to go 3 and out all game, then the defense is going to get tired. They're only going to be able to, stop the Cowboys so much. So I'm taking the Dallas Cowboys as I think the whole world is against the Jets, 27-9. Denver Broncos and the Washington Commanders. This could be a defensive matchup. It would not shock me. I could see it being 17-14 Commanders, 17-14 Broncos. I could see it going either way. I think this is a tough one to predict. At first, I did give it to the Broncos because I thought the Mile High, they have a legit home field advantage in the Mile High. It takes teams a little bit to adjust, to get used to it. Especially early on in the season when they're still getting in shape. Air's a lot thinner. There's just some things that are very different about playing in Denver. But we'll say Russell Wilson still looked the same, as the same Russell Wilson we saw last year. Offense is boring. Couldn't do too much. Now, maybe Sean Payton didn't open up a lot of the playbook to Russ. But at the end of the day, he still didn't look great. He didn't have crazy turnovers like he did last year. And, this Commanders defense is pretty good. It's much, much better than the Raiders, to say the least, than the Raiders defense. They have a great defensive line. They have some decent corners. They have some really nice pieces on this defense. Cameron Curl. I love Cameron Curl. But I just don't see this Broncos team or this Broncos offense being able to do enough. I know I still have them at 20 points, and the Washington Commanders winning by 1 point. It could really go either way. But I like Sam Howell much more than Russell Wilson at this point in Russ's career. The Broncos have a good defense, and they could get some pressure on Howell. That Washington Commanders front looked really bad versus the Cardinals. So hopefully they can turn it around. But I think the Commanders, with Sam Howell being a bit better than Russell Wilson, they have more weapons. They have Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin. In the backfield, they have Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. Both of them can come out of the backfield. Logan Thomas. I think this offense can get better as the season goes on. And that is why I think they beat the Denver Broncos, because they just have, more playmakers on offense. I think the quarterback situation is a little better than where Russ is at. The defense, I think the Broncos have the edge in the defense, have the slight edge in the defense, and that they're in Mile High. But I have the Washington Commanders taking the W against the Denver Broncos in Mile High. This is my second upset of the week. As you see, I have the New England Patriots taking the win versus the Miami Dolphins. So we saw how well the Patriots played the Eagles in week 1. And the Chargers ran really well all over the Dolphins. I think Eckler had like 17 carries, 16 or 17 carries for like 107 or 117. He had a touchdown. His yards per carry were through the roof. The Dolphins' run defense was not very good. And if this Dolphins offense cannot play like the versus the Chargers offense or the Chargers defense, if they can't not replicate that, which is very difficult to replicate a game like that. Tua was phenomenal. The weapons, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, phenomenal. The offensive line didn't let up one sack. But I saw how good that this Patriots defense looked versus the Eagles. Now I know the Eagles have a new OC, Brian Johnson. That offense is still trying to gain their footing, trying to figure it out, trying to feel each other out. But it couldn't really get going. I really thought that the defense really won that game for the Eagles. They even got a pick six. If they didn't get pick six, there's a good shot that the Patriots can win that game. I think there was a good shot for them to win it throughout. But the Eagles offense really struggled. They struggled to run the ball. But I think the Patriots are going to be able to run the ball this time around versus the Dolphins really well. And maybe that defense, maybe that Patriots defense screws up Tua a little bit. Say they get a pick. Say they get a fumble. One turnover might be all that the Patriots need to beat the Dolphins this one. We saw how well Mac Jones played versus the Eagles in week 1. And the Patriots kept Mac Jones pretty clean. Yeah, he was hitting. He was pressured a bit. But the Patriots offensive line looked really good against a really strong Eagles defensive front. I think the Patriots are going to pull up the upset. They're at home in Gillette. Bill Belichick is going to give Tua and that Dolphins offensive line fits with the different looks. I could see this being one of those games where we just look back at it and be like, damn, the Patriots did beat the Dolphins. Was it fluky? I'm not sure. I think the Patriots can be very good this year. I know it was just week 1 of what we saw. But they actually have an offensive coordinator. It's the old Texans head coach. I'm completely blanking on him. And again, I just did a video on the preview for the Eagles and the Vikings, and I'm blanking on who the OC is. It's Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien. And we saw what Mac Jones and this offense did. Not even incredible weapons. So I'm taking the Patriots to upset the Dolphins at home in Gillette Stadium. Mac Jones and Bill Belichick starting 1-1. Big time win at home versus the Dolphins. Dolphins are coming from LA to New England. A lot of traveling. All right. Next one we got here. We're talking about, this is Monday Night Football. That was Sunday Night Football. The Patriots and the Dolphins, I forgot to mention it. My fault. But now we got Monday Night Football. We have a doubleheader. Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints. I'm taking the Carolina Panthers. I literally have it on the screen. I still said I'm taking the Carolina Panthers. I don't think this is a great matchup for the Panthers, and that's why I'm taking the Saints. I think the Saints are going to be able to pass the ball pretty well. Derek Carr passed really well against, I think, is one of the better defenses in the league against the Titans. Now, they did make some little minuscule mistakes here and there. They couldn't convert in the red zone, and they're going to need to clean that up. I hope they do. But I'd say, Chris Olave, Raheed Shaheed, Michael Thomas, all of these guys looked really good with Derek Carr under center. Now, you're still not going to have Alvin Kamara, but I still think that Saints defense is going to play really well against a young quarterback and Bryce Young. You have a really nice secondary, Marshawn Lattimore. You have, is Marcus May in their secondary? I believe they have Marcus May in that secondary. They have a lot of really nice veteran and just a good secondary. They have a lot of experience, good secondary in my opinion, and they have a good defensive line. They could get some pressure, and that Carolina offensive line did not look good versus the Falcons defensive line, which I think is one of the better in that, which I think is a very good defensive line. Bud Dupree, Grady Jarrett, Aminyata. They have a lot of really good talent on the Falcons defensive line. The Panthers offensive line felt it. Now, the Panthers did run the ball really well, and I'm unsure why the Titans didn't run the ball more against the Saints, but the Panthers were actually running the ball really well against the Titans or against the Falcons. So I think they have that going for them, and I think Bryce Young is very good, but he's still young. He's still getting his experience in, and he's playing a really well-coached Saints defense. So that is why I'm taking the Saints to win this one on the Monday Night Primetime on the NFC South Showdown. Last but not least, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns, the AFC North matchup, another AFC North matchup. We saw how well the Browns played last week versus the Bengals, and yeah, it rained, so the Bengals struggled, and but the Browns ran the ball really well. They ran it down. What I think is a good Bengals run defense as well. Now, we'll see as the season goes on, but it was good last year, and I thought it would be good this year again. We'll still see. I think it's still a good run defense. It just got tired, just got worn out because the offense, the Bengals offense just couldn't get anything. They couldn't get a first down. They couldn't get any drives going, so defense was getting tired, and it was making it run defense that much more difficult. So Nick Chubb, Deshaun Watson even had a few nice running plays against them. And, we saw how much the Steelers struggled against running against the Niners. So the Browns have that going good for them right away. But I heard that the Steelers have like a crazy record coming off of 0-1 or something. I don't know, or and they have a big streak against the Browns, but I don't care. I'm taking the team that looks much better on paper. The Cleveland Browns offensive line or the defense line is going to get a ton of pressure on Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's going to struggle to get the ball out. The Browns have an elite defense, in my opinion, especially after that outing versus the Bengals and Joe Burrow. Even before the season, I was saying that the Browns are going to be a very good football team. And I think the Cleveland Browns are going to take it against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I don't think the Browns are going to have that much of a hard time. Now, Steelers, I think they do have a good defense. So it's very unlikely them to have a bad run defense and, missing tackles. But, it was CMC. The Niners absolutely killed them. The Niners have some really nice weapons on the outside. Brandon Ayuk, Elijah Moore. No, that's the Browns. But 49ers have Brandon Ayuk. Debo is okay. Debo can make all these different plays, all these, interesting plays. He's like a gadgety type player. Then you have, on the Browns, you have Amari Cooper, a very good route runner like Ayuk, who could go up and have big-time contested catches as well. You have Elijah Moore, who is a great route runner. Kind of could be like Deebo Samuel in a way. They lined him up in the backfield a couple of times. They had him on the sweet spot. I think Elijah Moore is much better I think he could be much better than Deebo Samuel. Just telling you, man, I don't see this Browns team having that much of a difficulty against the Steelers. Who's going to step up? Who's going to get some separation, between Deontay Johnson and George Pickens? I'm not sure, but that's all I got. That's all I got for this week. Those are my NFL Week 2 picks. Every single one. I will be doing premieres for Sunday night and both Monday night football games again. I'm doing, we have a premiere going live here in about an hour and an hour and 10 minutes. So if you're seeing this video, hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, the like, stick around because we'll be having a premiere going live soon for the Eagles and the Vikings game. That was why I wasn't included in this video, but that's all I got for you guys today. So thank you for tuning in to the JDW Sports Talk Show, where every fan is welcome. If you enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, put the post notification bell on so you don't miss any future videos. This is the JDW Sports Talk Show. Signing off.